For 3 episodes, we've talked about subtraction, the fuel the modern brain doesn't get, the cholesterol and structure it's blocked from building, the nutrients quietly missing. But there's a second half to this story, and it's the darker one, because the modern diet doesn't only fail to build the brain, it actively damages it. Today, we complete the terrain. This is the fourth pillar, inflammation, and it's where my deeper research over the years has lived. The machinery by which a metabolic diet doesn't just leave the brain hungry, but leaves it inflamed, glycated, and under attack. I'm Dr. Padda, and this is the fire. Let's start with the sugar we're told is the healthy one, fructose. Fructose is metabolized differently from glucose, and the difference matters enormously for the brain. When a cell processes fructose, it does something almost no other nutrient does. It depletes the cell's energy currency, ATP, in an uncontrolled way, generating byproducts that drive inflammation and oxidative stress. Researchers have proposed that this cerebral fructose metabolism is a central driver of the brain energy crisis we saw in episode 1, a self-inflicted starvation at the molecular level. And it doesn't act alone. Chronic sugar and refined carbohydrate drive insulin resistance. And remember, insulin resistance in the brain is the definition of the type 3 diabetes state we opened this series with. The fuel gauge from episode 1 and the fire of this episode are the same story told from two ends. Here is the mechanism I want you to understand, because it's the hinge of modern chronic disease, and almost no one explains it to patients. When the body runs chronically high on sugar and disordered metabolism, it produces advanced glycation end products, AGEs, molecules where sugar has essentially caramelized onto your proteins. These bind receptors called RAGE and flip on inflammatory switches. At the same time, a diet high in the wrong fats and metabolic debris activates immune sensors like TLR4 on the brain's resident immune cells, the microglia. Your microglia are supposed to be gardeners, pruning, cleaning, maintaining. Under chronic metabolic stress, they become primed, hair trigger, inflammatory, and instead of maintaining the brain, they begin to damage it. This low-grade, relentless, metabolically driven inflammation is what researchers call metaflammation, and it is increasingly understood as a core engine of neurodegeneration. It is a slow burn, invisible for years, then suddenly a diagnosis. If sugar lights the fire, industrial seed oils pour fuel on it. Over the last century, human intake of omega-6 linoleic acid from industrial seed oils used in nearly all processed and restaurant food has climbed to levels utterly without precedent in human history. In excess and out of balance with omega-3s, linoleic acid promotes oxidative stress and chronic inflammation. The brain, which is overwhelmingly built from fat, is exquisitely vulnerable to the quality of the fat you supply. Feed it unstable, oxidation-prone, pro-inflammatory fats, and you are, quite literally, building an organ out of compromised material and then setting it alight. This is the through line of the whole series clicking into place. The brain built from fat, episode 2, needs the right fat, or the structure itself becomes flammable. Poisoning isn't only about what's added, it's also about the protective inputs that go missing at the same time, leaving the brain both attacked and undefended. Sunlight and vitamin D. Avoiding the sun, avoiding fat, and blocking cholesterol synthesis all impair vitamin D, and low vitamin D is linked to altered brain development and higher dementia risk. The shield thins DHA and EPA. The omega-3s that are both structural and anti-inflammatory, the natural counterweight to all that omega-6, are exactly what a plant-only diet lacks. Carnitine, creatine, preformed vitamin A from episode 3 that support the mitochondria and the repair machinery, now under inflammatory assault. So the modern plate delivers a perfect 1-2. It adds the accelerants, fructose, excess omega-6, glycation, while removing the shields, omega-3, vitamin D, the animal source protectors. Attack up, defense down. Now, I want to show you one of the most startling frontiers in all of neuroscience. And I want to be scrupulously careful with the evidence, because this is where hype outruns proof. And I won't do that to you. There's a bacterium of chronic gum disease called Porphyromonas gingivalis. In advanced periodontal disease, this organism and the toxic enzymes it produces, called gingipains, can enter the bloodstream and travel through the body. And in a landmark 2019 study published in Science Advances, researchers found P. gingivalis gingipains inside the brains of Alzheimer's patients at levels that tracked with the disease pathology. In animal models, deliberately infecting the mouth led to the bacteria reaching the brain and producing Alzheimer's-like changes, which could be blocked with drugs targeting the gingipains. This work has been extended by Professor Annalise Barron's group at Stanford, framing chronic P. gingivalis infection as a driver of the innate immune dysregulation that may underlie Alzheimer's disease, weakening the brain's own antimicrobial defenses. And in newer work, which I'll flag honestly as a preprint that has not completed peer review, the same Stanford group reported finding these gingipain markers elevated in glioblastoma, the most aggressive brain tumor, hinting that this oral pathogen may play a role well beyond Alzheimer's. Now, the honesty that this topic demands, because you will hear this claim distorted online. You may hear that P. gingivalis can only live in your mouth if you eat carbohydrates. That is not correct, and I won't repeat it. P. gingivalis is what microbiologists call asaccharlytic. It does not feed on sugar at all. It's a protein eater. It acquires its nutrients and iron by cleaving your own proteins with those gingipain enzymes. What sugar does drive is the broader dysbiosis, cavities, gum inflammation, the bleeding, pocketed tissue that lets an organism like this flourish and enter the bloodstream. So the real defensible link is this. A high sugar diet damages the gums, and damaged gums are a doorway to the brain. That's strong enough. It doesn't need to be exaggerated. This is why at Regan.md, oral health is not an afterthought in a cognitive workup. The mouth is a gate. Step back and see the whole terrain now. A brain starved of its ketone fuel. A brain blocked from building its cholesterol and structure. A brain deprived of its micronutrient raw materials. And a brain poisoned and inflamed by fructose, glycation, seed oils, and the pathogens that a sugar-damaged body lets through. 4 failures, 1 diet. And what do we call the result when it finally surfaces on a scan at age 70? We call it normal aging. This series has been one long argument that it is nothing of the kind. It is multi-decade malnutrition and metabolic injury written into an organ, which raises the only question that actually matters, and it's the one we answer next. If the cause is one terrain failure, is there one correction? And does it actually work? The fire in your brain doesn't announce itself. There's no pain, no fever, just years of quiet damage that eventually has a name. But metaflammation is measurable, and it is modifiable. We can see it in your markers before it becomes a diagnosis. At Regan.md, a brain evaluation looks at the whole terrain, your metabolic inflammation, your fat balance, your glycation, and yes, the health of your gums as a gateway to your brain. Because you cannot fix a fire you refuse to look at. Next episode is the payoff, the one correction that has moved the needle across epilepsy, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and more, and what it means for you if brain disease runs in your family. If you want the full version of what I just covered, the actual studies, the mechanisms, and where the evidence is genuinely strong versus where it's still preliminary, I wrote it all down. It's a book called The Starved Brain, and the link is below. Every claim in it is referenced, so you don't have to take my word for anything.